Welcome back to Alcohol, Diversity and Inclusion. This is part 2. What I'm going to talk about in this video is why business and alcohol are so intrinsically linked. But better yet, I'm going to give you a few ideas about what you can do about it. So to start with, what I'd like you to do is think about the kind of people that drink. And to do that, I'm just going to show you a little chart. So what I want you to do is think about this pic and imagine that there are a couple of people sitting at the bar in this lovely establishment, and they are drinking neat whiskey. They're dressed in professional business attire and they're discussing investment. Now, adding all of that up, who are you thinking of? Who do you picture sitting at the bar? What is their gender? What is their race? And what is their age? Now, if we take a different photograph, if maybe we look at this restaurant, for example, who do you imagine would be sat in front of this meal? Again, what is their gender? What is their race? And what is their age? And then finally, let's take a look at another situation. There are two people sitting at that bar, dressed kind of casually, drinking pints of beer. Again, what is their gender? What is their race? And what is their age? Now, I have no doubt that, like me, you are familiar with the draw a scientist research, which shows that after a certain point, children will tend to draw scientists as men. And even if you haven't come across that particular strand of research, I have no doubt you know a little bit about the idea of biases. But I am willing to guess that you pictured men who are white and a little bit old. That, I imagine, is who you pictured in those three situations. Now, don't worry if that's making you feel a little bit biased, because in this case, the bias is absolutely right. And that's what I want to talk about briefly today, is the statistic about how alcohol is correlated with men, how it's correlated with older men, and how it's correlated with white or old white men, as you might want to call them. So let's have a think about that. So do men drink more than women? Well, yes, absolutely. So if you look at the statistics, the World Health Organization found that nearly 75% of all of the alcohol consumed in the world is consumed by men. So if it was a man and a woman sitting at that bar drinking together, then the chances are the man would have had 3 drinks for every one that the woman had. So yes, men drink far, far more than women. So do older people drink more than younger people? Yes, absolutely. Again, the statistics are pretty clear on that one. It is basically a straight line. The older you get, the more you tend to drink. You know, throughout our lives, certain things do affect it. So you sometimes see a little bit of a dip round about when people have children, for obvious reasons. That period of early childhood does make it kind of difficult for parents to drink as much. So we see a little bit of a dip then, but generally it goes up and up until you hit about 70, and then we see people drinking a bit less, again, usually for medical reasons. So yes, people drink more and more as they go through life. And ultimately that has to be true, doesn't it? Because no babies drink. So if you drink any alcohol, you are obviously drinking more than you did when you were a baby. Generally, what we see is the statistics show that it goes on and on and on until you get to 70, you're drinking and up and up. So yes, the older you are, you tend to drink more. Is it correlated with race? Absolutely. I mean, I can explain the entire world map of drinking if you like, but broadly speaking, Europe, North America, South America, Australia and New Zealand, i.e. the countries that are largely dominated by white people, that's where you see the most drink. In those countries, about 80% of people drink. If you look at North Africa through the Middle East up to Pakistan and Afghanistan, 95% of people never drink. So it's only 5% drink in those countries. So a massive difference. Sub-Saharan Africa, about 65% people never drink. Even in Asia, there's quite a high proportion of people that never drink, especially if you take out Japan and China, which are the only 2 Asian countries with real serious drinking cultures. And even in China, 55% never drink. So China, one of the largest alcohol markets in Asia, still 55% of people there never drink. Contrast that, of course, with the white parts of the world where 80% drink all the time. So yes, absolutely, alcohol is very much correlated with race. And just to draw home this point, if you look at the statistic in the United Kingdom, so the amount of white British men who develop a problem with drinking, it's about 30.3%. That's 30% of them, just over 30% of them. About 1 in 3 white men like me from Britain develop a problem with drinking, whereas 2.6% of Asian British women develop a problem with drinking. That is, more than tenfold. That is more than an order of magnitude difference. So yes, absolutely, drinking is correlated. Being male, being older, and being white. So why is that correlated with business? Well, because historically, all business revolved around older whiter men. So there is obviously a link between the people who are running companies and the way they choose to socialize. And the way they choose to socialize is around alcohol. I mean, of course, there are many other factors involved in alcohol. Is something that is very much ingrained with celebration and socialization within our society. And that plays a role too. But what I'm trying to get at is that there is a very strong element of drinking cultures in companies because those companies are dominated by old white. So what can we do about it? Well, the good news is, number one, you are already doing it. You are already being a part of the discussion. You are already starting to talk about, to think about. So just do that bit more. Get it on the agenda. Actually get people to talk about. We are so happy to talk about alcohol in terms of, well, it's not that bad drinking a G&T at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon because you're a bit stressed. That's fine. We're happy to talk about wine o'clock, but we're not actually happy to talk about the implication of drinking alcohol. We're not actually happy to talk about, the cultural implications. So begin that conversation within your organization, start that. And I think that's getting a lot easier now. People are much happier talking about wellness. They're much happier talking about mental health. Just need to realize that actually your wellness is often dictated by the amount you're drinking, and that alcohol can have a huge impact on your mental health. So it can be a part of a conversation that is already going on. Number two, I think it is really important to acknowledge that it is a structural problem. It is part of the way a lot of companies function from a structural point of view, and it requires that level of change. It's also a part of our society, the way politics views alcohol, the way it's regulated, the way it's advertised, the way it's presented in the media. All of those things are structured. So if we acknowledge that there's a lot of structural stuff going on, that always helps. But third, and I think most important of all, is to realize that we can change. We absolutely can change the conversation about alcohol. And if you don't believe me, just think about smoking. Within my lifetime, the way society sees cigarettes, nicotine, tobacco has changed massively. It has gone from something that was pervasive and was socially acceptable. To be fair, I'm not quite old enough to remember when people smoked in offices, but I do know that happened. And actually, that did happen to me in Argentina when I was in South America, when I was a youngster. So I just kind of sort of remember. But I do know that people used to smoke it. They now absolutely don't. There are some organizations that have completely banned smoking on the premise, and that's not in the building, that's on the ground. So yeah, absolutely, the way we talk about smoke has changed. We can change the way we talk about alcohol as well, change the impact that it has on the organization. So personally, I think, that's good news. Yeah, sure, there's a bit of work done, but we can do it. We've done it before. So that's just a little bit about why business and alcohol seem to be so totally and utterly interlinked, and how you can do something about it, starting to talk about it, acknowledging that it's structural and realize it can change. So next up in part 3, I'm going to talk about who feels excluded when alcohol is the main event, social event, or at company. And of course, I'm also going to share a few ideas about what you can do about it. So thank you very much for joining me for this video. I look forward to seeing you for the next.